Welcome to the Two Fat Brokers podcasts. I'm Ben from Abu Dhabi.
Barney from Dubai.
Today we're going to be talking about payment plans. Obviously in the off-plan market, the off-plan market's being a little bit tricky for developers at the moment, so they're working on ways to get people back to buying off-plan, and one of the powerful tools at their disposal are payment plans. If someone can get a good payment plan out there, they're more likely to sell the product. So what are these payment plans? What do they really mean? Which ones are good? Which ones aren't good? What should you try and look for? That's what we're going to be discussing today. So we could go through the boring ones first, but we thought flip it around and kind of do some of the interesting ones first up and then come to the sort of more vanilla ones later on. So we're going to start with post-handover payment plans.
I think they've been doing them for a couple of years now. They have gone all the way up to 8 years post-handover payment. I have heard of the Great White Rhino that is a 10-year post-handover payment, but I don't know.
It's like a unicorn.
It is like a unicorn. I was going to make a joke.
There's a stick stuck on a horse, on a horse's head.
But I don't know. I think it was a rumor. But 8 year post-handover payment plan is a big one. They tend to be around 5 years. That's really where I think you'll find most of the developers are doing now. They've obviously done their maths and decided that they can afford to bankroll.
So what is it? What's a post-handover payment?
A post-handover payment plan is when you pay a certain amount, receive the keys of your unit, and then pay the remaining amount over X amount of years after you have taken the keys for your property.
Do you get a title deed?
No, you will not get a title deed until you have paid the full amount. You will also obviously have had to have paid your Okud fee, which is a pre-handover registration fee, and that's how you'll get your Ijaris.
Do you get an Okud title deed?
No, you get an Okud receipt.
Okud receipt.
So your Okud receipt is proof that you paid your 4% property registration, which you will need for your Ijari to connect your DIWA and your due and things like that.
So what are you generally seeing in terms of, on handover, what do people have to...
You don't need an Ijari for that. You'll need your 4% Okud for your Ijari if you're going to lease it, which they will then need to get their due. You will just need your 4% Okud to get your DIWA and everything connected.
Okay. Sorry. So what are you seeing in terms of the amount that people have to pay on handover? Are we still talking 25%? Is it 30, 40?
It varies hugely.
Yeah.
It varies hugely. There is no hard and fast rule. Yeah,
okay.
Varies hugely.
So let's say for ease of reference, you got to pay 30% on handover. So you got 70% left to pay over 7 years. 10% a year. So this basically means that you don't have to go to a bank to get a mortgage.
It is an interest-free short-term property loan. Yes.
Well, short-term, I mean 7 years, 10 years. It's,
short-term for a mortgage.
Yeah, that's fair. You can get mortgages for those shorter terms. So in terms of the benefits to a buyer as against the negatives, what are they?
The benefits are that we have a large proportion of buyers here in Dubai like to buy outright in cash. It is very well, as far as I'm aware, it's very much a Middle Eastern thing where people like to buy in cash. They do not really like mortgages. This gives them the opportunity to buy in cash over a longer period of time. It also means once it's handed over and you've leased it out, you can then use the rent to help you pay those final payments.
Yeah, and so I guess the negative in terms of a buyer, from a buyer's perspective, is your payments are going to be a lot fatter than a mortgage.
Yes. Yeah, I mean your lump sum payments will be much bigger than a mortgage over 25 years, obviously.
Yeah, they'll be much bigger, but it'll basically all be principal instead of because there's no interest.
No interest at all.
Yeah. So these things would suit what kind of people? People with a lot of disposable income?
No, they would suit investors. I mean, if you've got a lot of disposable income.
Many investors buy cash?
Yeah. Most.
It's unusual.
Like I say, in Dubai, there's a huge amount of people that buy just cash. They don't like to be leveraged against the bank. They like to have complete control over their money. So if they need to liquidate it quickly, they can at their whatever level they want to.
Okay.
And also it means that if the property is vacant for any period of time, they don't have a bank breathing over their neck. So they believe it gives them a little bit of extra time to try and get that extra rental premium.
Okay. So it would suit someone who's got, because so let's say you've got your average gross yield on a property is about 7%. Let's say, for example. So if you're going to be paying, on a short term, so some people are offering like that's three-year post-handover payment plans. You're going to have to come up with 25% a year. I mean, that's a huge chunk. But the longer post-handover payment plans are more attractive because you've got the smaller chunks, so you can rent the property out, get your 7% yield, and then use that 7% to pay a good chunk of what your post-handover payment plan's requiring of you.
Correct.
Yeah. So but as an investor, you're still going to have to pay money in, but everything that you pay in is all principal, it's all being paid off.
You'll find obviously that potentially people are buying more units because they have that payment plan which eases the burden. Also, they understand that they'll be getting an income from the moment it's handed over, so they can actually do their maths. And as we mentioned in a previous podcast, if you're buying in the first phases of launches, you're buying for less than what the market price would be for a finished unit, and then you're paying even less from your pocket because you have a tenant helping you with those final payment plans. So from an investor's perspective, their gross price for the property is coming down and down and down and down from their own pocket.
Although it should be noted, people are using really attractive payment plans to get people to buy their product, which means that one of two things: either there's not many buyers in the market, or their product is being sold at a slight premium. So you might be paying a little bit more for this post-handover payment plan than you would if you were just going to put 100% down cash or 25, 75 or something.
People are prepared to pay slightly higher premiums for a property over a long period of time. So I guess that's how the developers build in their interest. It's an interest-free loan, but it isn't really interest-free because it's built into the price. Yeah,
and for a developer, this is attractive because obviously people, if people don't want to go to the banks, it's a way for them to buy with less cash. For developers, it's unattractive because it means they don't sell their building for the 5 or 7 years where they don't sell it in its entirety, and the developer will still have to be paying interest. Now, a development loan is probably about 6% unless you're a very, very well-known and well-liked developer. But once the building's handed over, the developer can probably borrow at a cheaper rate than individuals. So this is quite a nice way of a developer using its power to then pass that benefit on to individuals at borrowing at a lower rate than those people would get it in a residential mortgage. So positives for the developer, but if you're a developer who just wants to get your BCC and then never touch the property again, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, all true.
Right. Number 2, guaranteed return. So this is where you're getting an off-plan property or even actually a built property, and the developer says, we guarantee this amount of yield for this amount of years.
Be warned is my first word of advice on that. Be warned. Personally, and I know this to be true with a lot of my clients, they're not overly enthused about getting into bed with the developer unless their guaranteed return is guaranteed by a bank. For various different reasons, that if they end up not being able to fulfill their obligations to you as part of the guarantee, it's very difficult to hold their feet to the fire to actually make sure that they do pay you.
I mean, you're taking a credit risk on a developer.
Yeah, if they're not making their payments to you, it means that they haven't got the money to be making them, and therefore getting the money from them is going to be a very difficult thing. Your developer does want to pay you. He does want to have that name in the market, and he does want to be considered to be the kind of guy that can deliver on his promises. But if he can't, it means, or if he won't, it means he can't.
Cash flow. Well, do you ever get the situation where you buy and so they guarantee it for 3 years and they give you 3 checks when you buy?
We have products like that at 8% at the moment.
Right.
With 8 years, 8%, and they'll give you all the checks for 8 years in advance. But that doesn't mean anything if those checks start bouncing.
That is true. And do you normally see this as a gross yield or a net yield?
Net yield.
Net.
all
Wow, that's
done
amazing.
net.
Because if you're doing it gross and the developer has control over the service charges,
Exactly.
they can
Yeah,
claw
it's
back
gotta
a
be
bit
net.
there.
It's got to be net.
And in this kind of payment plan, what kind of deposit are you expecting? Is this a 25% on handover and then that's fine, or are they looking for more like
These are
40,
already
50,
the opportunities
all
that
cash?
we've got on ready. I don't know.
And how much would you have to pay, or would you finance it?
You pay the full amount, and then so it's predominantly done in hotel.
Of course, it's not
pools.
post handover.
Yeah, it's predominantly done in hotel transactions, whereby the operator knows that they can lease out the unit, make a percentage on top, and then guarantee the rest back to you.
So, from a buyer's perspective, guaranteed return, if you can get a mortgage on it, is incredibly good, because if you can borrow from a bank at 4%. And you'll get a guaranteed return at 8%, your leverage return is going to be up by 10, 11, 12% return guaranteed over a certain amount of time. So
how does that work?
Well, you're only putting 25% down cash.
Of course, on the deposit.
You're borrowing the other 75%. So your leverage return, would be huge. So guaranteed return
camera 4%
can be.
You've gone 10 or 12%. I'm looking at because I was
leverage.
taking
Okay. Yeah. I mean, borrow at 4%. Mortgages at the moment, probably the cheapest one you can get is probably about 3.8 on a residential mortgage.
For 2 years.
25, guaranteed for 2 years.
Yeah.
So guaranteed return can be massive if you can leverage yourself.
But
up
we're
to the
talking
hilt.
about payment plans.
Well, guaranteed return is something that people offer you, I guess, to buy their off-plan product.
I don't know of anybody in Dubai who is offering guaranteed returns and a post-handover payment plan.
No, I think that's fair.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
I might even buy one of those.
Whoa. All right, so number 3, rent to own.
Rent to own is something we don't see a huge amount of in Dubai. It is a good idea. It is something I've known to be championed by the UK government. It is something I don't know a huge amount here, but I do know it is something that is coming to the forefront. Now, rent to own, ladies and gentlemen, is when they take a percentage of your lease amount and they put it towards a deposit to finally own the unit that you are leasing. I hope I've explained that clearly. Yeah,
so in an off-plan context, you'd make your payments off-plan, and then when it comes time to hand over the unit, you don't get a mortgage. You basically move into it as a tenant, and then your rent then goes towards the amount of equity in the product, or a portion of your rent, however much it is. Yeah. So it's actually a lot like post-handover payment plan, I guess.
But I think for a longer period of time, right?
No, often shorter, because what they're trying to get you to do is, in the ideal way, you'd put down, let's say, over the off plan, you'd only put down 10%. So you don't have 10% in it once you moved in.
Deposit.
Yeah, which is your deposit. Yeah, but 10% is not enough. So what you then do is move in for 3 years, adding 5% to that over the next 3 years. Yeah. Then you'd be in a position to mortgage it. Then you mortgage it.
Okay, so it isn't for the full amount. It's just until you paid your deposit.
No, so rent to own, they're basically trying to get you in there on a low amount.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a big deposit, and then your rent then builds up your deposit.
So for the first 3 years, let's say you're paying back for argument's sake, the 10% of deposit that you were short. For those 3 years, is your rent going to be higher than the market rent? And then once you've mortgaged it, you're then obviously your monthly payments will come down, or is it structured in a way that your monthly payments would never really change? It's in line with whatever mortgage you get, that last 10% you're paying to the
developer. So the developer doesn't care about what mortgage you get, and that'll depend on your ability to pay. So the developer will probably charge you market or slightly above market. They might even charge you on top of that service charges, because that's what the developer's paying, in theory, for the upkeep of the building. But it'd be structured in such a way that at the end of the 3 years, you'd have at least 25% equity in the building, and you can get a mortgage. So that's why the developer sort of then doesn't get its 100% for those 3 years, but it's got someone guaranteed in there to buy it at that time. So they know after 3 years, and paying the service fees for the building, after 3 years they'll be able to sell the whole thing.
Yeah.
We've had two of those in Abu Dhabi recently.
Go well.
not at liberty to say. One of them was over 15 years. Rent to own over 15 years.
Just for the 20%, 25%?
No, because what they were doing is it would be a combination post handover plan and rent to own. So your rent would be going towards the equity amount until you'd got 100% after 15 years.
Oh, so it's again an interest-free 15 years.
Interest-free 15-year mortgage, yeah, but you move in and pay your rent.
Guys,
so
as a rent to own.
Yeah, a bit of a post-handover plan for 15 years, but yeah, guys, does rents to own. And the other one, you had options of 3 years and 5 years.
For the deposit amounts.
Yeah, but then I think at the end of the 3 years, you'd have about 35% equity, and at the end of the 5 years,
what kind of developer can offer a 15-year post-handover payment plan? Private developer.
Yeah, it was a private developer.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were
Self-funded.
requiring a premium on the market price, a significant
Percentage,
premium.
how much? Roughly?
I would say it was probably, depending on the valuation, it would have been maybe a 30% premium.
What?
Well, it's over
That's a
15
lot of
years.
interest.
Well, it's over 15 years, right? So you're not paying any interest for 15 years.
You are, but it's...
And you're not really paying any rent because all your rent's going into the...
But you're paying a premium of 30%, which is their interest on the loan that they're giving you over 15%.
Yes.
Over 15 years.
Yeah, but 30% over 15 years
That's
it's only 2%. 30% over 15 years is 2% a year.
So developers that's a good point. Developers acting as banks these days.
Yeah, because a developer can borrow at a much better rate than you and I because of their size and track record, hopefully. So they're then using that power to offer us, better systems of payment to get a premium on their product.
Smart move, kid. Smart move.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to move down to slightly more vanilla payment plans. 1090. See much of that? 1090 meaning 10%, to handover, 90% on handover.
Not much. Don't really need to go that aggressive in Dubai.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No.
Seeing a fair bit of that in Abu Dhabi, actually. So 1090, we're seeing a fair bit of that in Abu Dhabi because obviously it's a kind of low entry point, but it's a bit risky for developers because you've got 10% there and you're asking for someone to find the other 15% or 10% if you're a UAE national on handover in cash and then, finance the other 75%. So it looks attractive to buyers, but you got to be careful that you're going to need that 15% in cash on handover.
And the question being, if you're taking a 1090 mortgage, a 1090 payment plan, why not just pay your 10%, pay them the 10% over whatever time frame they've given, and then finance the rest of it and get a proper mortgage?
Well, no, that is it. So you're paying 10% to handover. No, so it's 10% to handover,
Yeah.
and then on handover you need to find the other 90. 75% will be mortgage, 15% will be
90
cash.
is not on the payment plan, a long-term payment plan.
No. We're into the more vanilla payment plans.
Yeah. Well, that's not really much of a payment plan.
Yeah, it is. 1090, it's a payment plan.
Yeah, that's true.
Normally you'd be at least 25, 75.
When you say payment plans in Dubai now, I say everybody, I automatically leap to post-handover because it's rife. There isn't a developer now launching anything that doesn't have a post-handover payment plan. You will be dead in the water. In the water.
And what kind of premium do you think they charge for a post-handover plan as against the standard cash plan?
I don't know. I wish I did.
Oh,
It's not something I've looked into.
We'll look into that.
Because
Because that's interesting. So another one, 1% a month. See much of that?
Yeah, see some of that from the smaller developers, absolutely. I won't mention them, I'm not allowed to say who the smaller developers are, but it is a great way for them to be able to entice people in. It's also a very affordable way to buy a house, very affordable. We're seeing some of that. Not a huge amount, but definitely some.
Yeah, and actually it's probably pretty good for the developers as well because they're getting like a regular stream of income and it's smaller bites. Obviously 1% per month is probably still going to be more than a mortgage. But you'll see a fair bit of it. And then, so this is during the handover period, or is it post-handover?
People who wouldn't necessarily be able to get a mortgage, like self-employed. Blah, blah,
So you'd see this post-handover as well as during construction, 1% a month.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've only ever seen 1%. It's not.
Well, we've seen more of his 1% during the construction phase. So 1% during the construction phase for 25 months, and then you finance
post-handover
the
from, I
rest.
think it was Danube. I think they've done post-handover 1% a month.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a bit of a rent own, I guess, or it could be post handover, depending which way you structure it. Yeah. Okay. So they're the main ones we see in Abu Dhabi. You seeing anything else in Dubai that we've not covered?
No, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much all of them. I mean, like I said to you, the only thing that I think is different from Dubai and Abu Dhabi is that if you're a developer now and you're not offering a post-handover payment plan, you're not competing. You're not competing.
I mean, there's that many people who would rather use cash than a mortgage. I think you said that, right? There's a lot of cash buyers.
There's a lot of cash buyers.
Yeah, we don't see nearly as many cash buyers in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset that's been in Dubai. I've been here 11 years. It's a mindset that surprised me at first, because I was working in the real estate market, the property market in the UK for 10 years before that, and no one bought cash. I think in 10 years I probably sold two properties cash. And then I came here and everything was cash. Finance is viewed in a very different way here in Dubai.
Okay, interesting. Well, so handover plans are a huge part of real estate in the UAE, whether it's Dubai or Abu Dhabi. It's a great way for developers to use their own, financial power to help buyers.
It's an encouraging sign for developers as well, that they actually have that kind of liquidity within their company that they can afford these kind of handover plans.
Yeah, or the relationship with the banks as well. Look out for new payment plans near you. If you see any, let us know. We'd love to delve into them and talk about them. Hope this podcast has been useful. Yeah, we've been Two Fat Brokers. I've been Ben from Abu Dhabi.
Barney from Dubai.
Thank you for being with us. See you next time.